It's only about a little bit more than a month to go, and then we have the election in the United States on the 3rd of November. And this arguably would be the most important US presidential election in our lifetime. Now, Trump is under a lot of pressure and has been fiercely attacked by the media and the Democrats, mainly about his handling of the pandemic. Now, I am going to share with you something very interesting that maybe you would see it with these solid numbers, then you understand that this whole politicized and weaponization of the pandemic is groundless. Let's take a look here. Now, what you see here, the actual numbers I got from the statistics, and I'm comparing only 4 nations. Of course, we can compare more nations, but I think these are more representative. The United States, United Kingdom, Italy, and Sweden. We have 2 EU countries, 1 Britain, and then you have the United States, right? They are all Western countries with very similar developments and also with different kinds of government. Our impression is that Boris Johnson, he did not do too well. He himself was affected. He tested positive. He was in the ICU. And Italy, they had a lot of deaths, a lot of people hospitalized. Oh, Sweden is a different kind, because Sweden, they don't do actual social distancing. They do they are treating the pandemic in a very different way. Now, so I'm actually taking only 3 numbers for each nation: the total population, the total cases, and then the total deaths from the coronavirus. And that's 3 numbers from every nation. And then the US, we have 331 million total population. The UK is a decent size, 66 million nation. And the UK and Italy are very similar. Italy is slightly less populated. And Sweden, comparatively, is a smaller country. It has only 10 million population. And then we have the total cases that are reported in the US, 7 million, a bit more than 7 million. Now here, we can see that then the US total deaths. Now here is where the Democrats and the media are making a lot of juicy news about 200,000 deaths. 200,000 deaths of people. Oh, Donald Trump has blood on his hands. Well, is that a fair accusation? No, you see, nobody wants to see people died. 1 death is too many. But if you have a population of 31 million and you have 206,000 deaths, what is the death as a percentage of the population? Now, this is not exactly the best way to show, because I go through the whole thing with you, don't worry. Now, here is what I find very, very interesting. This is the last number on the column. Deaths as a percentage of the total population, 0.062. And where's the UK? 0.0628. Italy, a little bit better, 0.059. And Sweden is not that much better, 0.058. So here is really something very, very interesting. The actual percentage of number of people die of the coronavirus as using the denominator as the whole population of the country, all 4 nations come up with very similar numbers. Very similar numbers. So the US is not doing exactly that much badly. I think every one of them has some problem. As I said, one death is too many. But the 200,000 deaths, you have to put things in perspective, right? So the next thing, this is what Donald Trump was arguing with the reporter from Axios. He said, we have to divide the deaths by the number of cases. I think he has a point. Now, you can see what I'm saying here. If you see that we have a total reported cases of slightly more than 7 million in the US, then the deaths as a percentage of total cases in the US, it stands out. It's only 2.89%, while the UK has a terrible number, more than 10%. Italy, very bad, 11.8%. And even Sweden, which is like a star student, I mean, it's like seemed to be, people thought it was like a role model, right? The best of the best, but it still has 7.28%. So you see, the US is substantially, outstandingly, way better, way above and beyond in the way that they actually has the lowest deaths as a percentage of all the cases reported. But I think this could be a slight exaggeration. As you can see, that the US has the total, that this is the next thing, the total number of cases per population. And here the US is doing quite badly. You see, the US has more than 2% of the population affected, while the UK has only 0.62%. And Italy has even less. Only 0.5% of the population is affected. And then Sweden doing slightly worse, 0.81%. But here, I think, my guess is very simple. The US has done more tests than everyone else, has done more tests than anyone else. So we have an over representation of the cases. What I'm saying is that in the UK, Italy, and Sweden, the actual number of cases are much larger than you see on this chart, because we have a lot of people with no symptoms that they did not do the test, and nobody would know that they actually are affected or they actually carry the virus, right? So because we have an over-representation of the cases, and then we have a lower number of deaths per cases in the US, and we also has a larger number of cases per population. So if you actually come up with all these numbers, then you find out that no matter what you do, whether you do a very severe and rigorous social distancing, whether you wear masks or you don't wear masks, and by the end of the day, the actual deaths as a percentage of the population, you come up with very similar number. So my argument is that it actually the actual number of cases in every one of these four countries are very similar. And then the US has done a very good job in that it still has measurably lower cases of deaths per lower number of deaths per cases reported, even though you have a high representation with that 7 million, because you've done a lot of tests, right? I understand that, but then even if that is taken that into consideration, the US has done a good job. Now the problem, then the next thing I want to say is that for the UK, for the US, for Italy, they don't do as good a job as Sweden. It's very simple. As President Trump has said, the cure cannot be worse than the disease itself. Now, the lockdown, the social distancing, all this restriction of economic and social activities and all this shutting down of the schools, they are actually creating a lot of problems in the community, including maybe domestic violence, drug problems, and the other thing is, of course, we have a huge rise of unemployment in the U.S. because you basically are deliberately shutting down the whole economy, right? When here, Sweden, without doing all that, you still get the same number of deaths, it's the same number of cases. It's not a pleasant thing, but at least you don't have the unemployment, you don't have the freezing of the economy, you don't have the domestic problems, violence, drug issues that are related to this severe lockdown and social distancing. So I think the whole thing that the Democrats and the mainstream media are trying to do and paint a picture of Trump having blood in his hands, and how Trump is like is to blame. There's nothing to blame, right? If you look at this chart, there's nothing to blame. As simple as that. I mean, everybody has done a job that is not exactly desirable. That maybe they should do a better job than that. And every country is, to a certain extent, taking a hit with all this. You see the cases and the deaths and all that. But the lockdown themselves are a very unpleasant thing. And then I think what we should learn from Sweden is that we have to open up the economy. And we'll see what happens.